Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. The second panel, we're going to be discussing the topic this evening, which is really the future direction of India and the ASEAN strategic partnership. We have so far spoken about some of the critical issues and some of the ones that seem to be a recurring theme, recurring complications. For those of us those of you who are with me right now, we looked at the complexities of connectivity, the partnerships, the stakeholders and their involvement and what that really means to them. This, on the other hand, is going to be a larger discussion in terms of what you really want to see out of this initiative. Given, of course, the dynamics of ASEAN itself, the partnership that we're trying to forge with India, and also the policy that you see emanating out of India. I also want to use this occasion to ask you whether you feel that this is a particularly opportune time to change the pace in terms of our partnerships as countries, and I would be very grateful if you could just speak whenever you wish to on this. So, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's exciting if we look into the future. I think it will be very exciting exercise. But even if you are looking to the future, I think we must be sure that we have a firm foundation and firm ground. What I'm trying to say, this means actually that the future direction will have to be built upon the progress and the achievements that we have so far. Yeah. So that is one. And what does it mean? This means actually we are continuing, we are deepening, yeah, basically. So the previous speaker has mentioned that continuing the dialogue in the peace, ensuring peace, security, stability through the mechanism of, say, EAS, ARF, and so forth. So that's also have to be clear, yeah, that it is actually continuing. In the context of ASEAN, we are now have the post-2015 vision being formulated. So then the direction, the future direction, will have to connect with the need of the post-2015 vision and direction. It should not be, separate. Then we have, when you ask, it is an opportune time, yes, definitely. Because then we are working on the POA, the plan of action. We are renewing. So then it will be part of this, aligning all this into that, what you call this, future direction. Let me just add two more points, small points. When we talk about the ASEAN-India partnership, we are also talking about connectivity of 1.2 billion plus over 600 million. Actually, what it means is actually it cannot be just limited to Delhi, Jakarta, Delhi, Kuala Lumpur, Delhi, Manila, and Delhi to the rest of the capitals, Southeast Asia. I'm talking about widening the cooperation. Yeah? And that actually is very important. We are talking about connectivity, and we are then bound by those land connectivity. We need to multiply because of the size. Yeah? So that's by IT.
So that's a matter of scale. You're saying that make it a much larger proposition. Yeah. Think large, think big. Can I just narrow the question down a little bit over here? In terms of the strategic role that India can actually play at this stage, given the complexity of scale and also the dynamics that are involved within ASEAN, what do you really think India can, what is the role that you see India could possibly play strategically going forward? It's a big question. We were talking about larger things. Please.
Okay. Well, as a rejoinder to the statements, I think when you talk about the future of the partnership, the ASEAN-India partnership, we can say offhand that it's a bright future. Why? Because, well, it's a big region and there's a lot of things to do. And when you have that situation, you can always say that there's no way but to go up. Now, having said that, I think what is important is for the partnership the ASEAN-India partnership, and the dialogues to sustain, the efforts and the initiatives and the gains. Because it's such a big region, and there's a need to prioritize the things that we have to do as a community. I say that because the partnership it's not just an economic concern or it's an economic partnership, but it goes beyond that. No? It has to evolve to a larger community in the future, just like the other fora that we have witnessed. Therefore, in the future, we need to have a mechanism, no? A strategic mechanism to preserve these gains. Because as you know, people come and go, but hopefully institutions will be left behind to sustain, to nurture, and to shepherd these gains. No? In the other fora, there are mechanisms that has been instituted, and it is also the desire of many that it becomes an institutional or institutionalized mechanism in the ASEAN-India partnership in order that gains, economic gains will be sustained, developments or gains in the human resource area will be there to support the greater mandate, the greater ideals of the partnership. So in a way, there's a need really to position the ASEAN-India partnership towards attaining a greater community or alliance in the future.
Greater alliances in the future.
If I can come in at this point, I would like to associate myself with the views expressed by the two speakers, but I don't think there is that we are working entirely a new perspective in terms of defining the strategic depth of ASEAN-India relations. We have been articulating our visions in the various statements, and one of them is the plan of action to implement the ASEAN-India partnership for peace, progress, and shared prosperity. So the issue now is at what pace are we in terms of achieving or actualizing the vision set by ourselves, together, collectively. And as we refine and define ourselves towards the future in the post-2015 agenda, then we would bound to be in the position of fine-tuning how we proceed and taking into consideration what are the emerging challenges that we'll be facing together. Thank you.
I think if I want to add, as an analogy, when ASEAN and India first started the vision statement in 2012, we were a 20-year-old teenager. We are now into our 23rd year and moving towards our 25th anniversary in 2017. We are 10 plus 1 tiger moms and tiger dads, wanting to look at how to actualize potential. There are a lot of anxiety because we feel that this collaboration is 23 years old, but it's not reaching potential. And as very Asian tiger moms and dad, we want this relationship to bloom. And as many of our panelists have said, the potential is there. So I'm all for going for actualization, to act on it. How to find tangible results out of this relationship. And I think the way to do it is perhaps for some of us to loosen the rules, to allow that potential and to allow this relationship to bloom without so much micromanagement.
Tension, micromanagement. In fact, sir, I'm interrupting you because one of the questions I was going to follow up with, and which is really, what are those bottlenecks? We're looking at two-way trade. We're looking at the larger scenario. You've talked about what micromanagement. These are all very polite terms, and I'm, or perhaps they are the right terms for larger problems. Could I just please ask my panelists to give me an idea, what comes to your mind when I talk about those bottleneck issues? We've talked about the mechanisms, we've talked about the free will, we've talked about the win-win situation. Again, in actuality and execution, would you like to go first, sir?
I wouldn't call it a bottleneck.
Okay.
But it's a challenge, yeah, in the sense that something that we need to work further. I think it's expanding the base that we might have to promote further. And this is actually that we are looking and actually having a multi stakeholders. So we are broadening the base of the relationship, broadening the ownership of the India-ASEAN partnership. So, there are so many possibilities there if we can, involve the youth, involve actually we are talking about intensification. We have the media, the journalist relation, but they are not intensive enough. We have to think about tripling, actually, and, to different cities, different places. Yeah. So this is my view.
Okay.
Well, I would look at it in terms of having a transformative mindset, greater ownership of the kind of collaborative efforts that are being visualized by both our ASEAN as well as India. So once you have that transformative mindset, then you are going to be in the position to address all the shortcomings that you find would be hindering the progress that we wanted to achieve in the coming years. So it's asking us the right questions, then where do we proceed, that we have visualized all these ideas, and how do we actualize them, and what are the inherent problems preventing us from actualizing it. So if we can handle those issues head on, then we will be able to collectively move ahead with greater confidence.
And is that support mechanism existent? Learn as you go along, because that's a very key measure that we need to talk about as well as a forum.
Well, the key words that I've pointed out is transformative mindset. I mean, in transformative mindset, if you find that there are certain issues or procedures that are holding it back, then of course you would need to transform yourself. You would need to move ahead. You would have to identify or reinvent yourself in the way you do or you conduct business with your fellow partners. So that would be the only way to move forward. Thank you.
I like what Prime Minister Modi has proposed, that countries who are very interested to collaborate with India can go directly to the States. In a sense, this releases a lot of unnecessary bottlenecks, and through trial and error, you are able to look at projects with very little horizontal micromanagement, in a sense. So in the case of, I'll give you an example, in the case of Singapore, we have embarked on a smart city collaboration with Andhra Pradesh. It is a $2 billion project at its first stage. We are bringing in, together with Singaporeans consortium, multiple Southeast Asian countries to invest. And basically what we want to do is do manufacturing in a technological park, and also to build sustainable cities. In a way, it's across the board, very model-like, small-scale kind of experimentation, which you can dovetail into other parts of India.
Okay, so these are small experiments, and of course, earlier on we've been talking about the importance of SMEs and so on and so forth, but I guess given the larger discussion here, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, for the most part, the legal frameworks, policy, as well as the administrative mechanisms poses, or they pose some, bottlenecks or hindrance in the facilitation, liberalization process. That's why it's important to look at all these strictures and perhaps study and compare and harmonize at some point, because the other side of the problem is the lack of understanding of the cultural diversity that is there.
Sure.
But that can be remedied by the community that we're having now, and later on the mutual understanding that will follow when we lay on the table all these frameworks. So it's important that we have that mechanism to vet all of this.
We are, of course, as usual, out of time. This is the biggest tragedy. I apologize just about 15 minutes ago for that. But there's a larger question that's really been in the news a lot, and I think it's at the back of anyone who's perhaps even looking at this in a larger perspective other than economics. And we at the end of the day, we have think tanks, academics, businessmen, various stakeholders that are involved today. In light of the South China dispute that's been very much in the news, what role do you feel India could play in security and not just the economics of this entire relationship? I know it's a complicated question, but if we could just look at different aspects of this relationship, what would you like to say? No, I'm just talking about, no, okay, you don't have to answer, but I'm just saying, okay, let's put it this way. In terms of the, if you take India away from the economic realm of this whole business, in terms of strategy, what do you think? It's interesting for us to hear about your perception on it.
I cannot really pin down your question,
yes, of course.
But let me share my views from the perspective of a community building as a journey. Yeah, a journey is actually, we have milestones and where we review, but the bottom line of that is actually we are not only connecting people, we are building people. Yeah. So in fact, this is actually one area that if I may propose to give higher priority in the and visibility in terms of the ASEAN-India partnership. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a human capital development on both sides. Again, we have programs. Ambassador Suresh was, offering this other training. Very welcome, sir. But we need to, as I said, intensify and make it more visible. So, along the journey, yes, it is community building, is people building, and perhaps this is one area that we may give more visibility.
Okay, intensification and more visibility. Any closing remarks, sir, as we finish the second panel on the future of this mutual strategy?
On the question of peace that you have mentioned, we would like to see India and ASEAN using existing platform, such as the recently established ASEAN Institute of Peace and Reconciliation, to pursue cooperation in peace building, particularly in the areas of conflict management and conflict resolution through moderation. And there could be other various activities and cooperation that could be initiated within the 6 areas of practical cooperation under the ambit of ASEAN Defense Minister Meeting Plus. So I think that's our take on the role that India could play in the aspect of peace building. Thank you.
My final word is, I think in this Delhi Dialogue, it's a first because we have a business segment, yes, that is closely linked to the Delhi Dialogue, which in the past was more focused on security issue. I think it's a good modeling effect. I feel, and I think my colleagues will share my view, is that we have such a big network of political exchanges. I would like to see during the political exchanges, the leaders bring along business delegations, like many of us who have visited New Delhi has done so. I think that kind of networking is just precious.
It's important, yeah. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the partnership has to redound to inclusive growth and, poverty alleviation or eradication. After all, the ASEAN-India partnership, it's not just about economics, but it's about people.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my panelists for really having been incredibly concise as well as just wonderful in terms of their inputs. Thank you very, very much. I hope that my audience enjoyed that exchange. I certainly have had a wonderful time being the panelist with them. Thank you very much. Thank you, sirs.